been a fan of video games for long enough, then you might remember a time where emulation was the second choice. A time where if you wanted to experience some older games in the medium, you could go on to whatever marketplace service your system had and almost surely find collections of these old games available to download and experience. Chief among these used to be the Nintendo Wii with its Virtual Console system, having games from the NES, Super Nintendo, N64, and even non-Nintendo systems, such as the TurboGrafx, Mega Drive, Master System, Commodore 64, Neo Geo, and even some arcade systems. These games would come out in waves, with gamers excitedly booting up the Wii Shop channel, hearing that iconic music, and scrambling to see what classic games had been added to experience. Truly, the Wii Shop channel was a godsend for gamers who wanted to experience their old games again. But even for the younger audience, as I was at the time, the Virtual Console was a good friend to have. Many, like me, I'm sure, wanted to see the games that the characters from Super Smash Bros. Brawl came from. There were games I knew even at the time were big names, such as Mega Man and Final Fantasy to name a few. There were games I loved, like Zelda and Mario, but never got to experience some entries as a kid, such as Majora's Mask and the original Mario Party games. And I didn't have over $200 as a child to obtain said game for the family N64 that was handed down. So for me, and I'm sure many other people, the Virtual Console was one of the best reasons to own a Wii, on top of the 30 other reasons. So suffice it to say, when the Virtual Console and Wii Shop channel as a whole shut its virtual doors in 2019, even though you couldn't purchase new games for a while up until that point, fans were disappointed to say the least. But at that point in time, this also wasn't too big a deal, because there was a new service that took over the place of the Wii Shop channel, the eShop. The eShop was a universal marketplace for Nintendo going forward. In the Wii U and 3DS era, they needed a consistent service that would cater to both systems, and it worked well. While a good majority of the original games that were on the Wii Shop's channel's Virtual Console didn't make it over, this was reasonably assumed to be due to either licensing issues or to respect re-releases. For example, many of the Square Enix games that let's say, desperate and hopeless Final Fantasy fan holds near and dear were no longer available. Not talking about anyone in particular. But even this too was fine. As while the eShop's Virtual Console may have gotten rid of some games, it added in entirely new systems. Not only did we get back the NES, Super Nintendo, and N64, but we also received the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, and even Wii games. For series such as Zelda or Metroid, this meant you could play every game in the respective series on the Wii U alone, making it the best console for retro gaming. A point that surely some of you who have been around this channel since the beginning will remember. With the launch of the Switch in 2017, the features that were on the system from the get-go were somewhat lacking. Before you get your pitchforks out, the Switch is an incredible system, and its greatness cannot be denied no matter how much of a hater for Nintendo you are. However, even for fans of Nintendo, which if it's not clear, I am, there were some features that didn't seem to make the jump to the Switch. These primarily being the following. The lack of an ability to make folders for your games, relatively harmless and vastly blown out of proportion, and one that Nintendo would address years later. The other being the lack of theme variety. Definitely odd considering the major focus Nintendo gave themes on their previous system, but honestly, this is one I've never really understood the hate for. I truly believe the fact that there's a window for themes at all is what created this problem. If there had simply been a dark mode options and settings to change the colors of the home screen, I don't think anybody would have this expectation for themes that the whole window implies. But of course, the whole reason we're here, the last feature missing, the Virtual Console. Now, it was understood that porting over the entire library, or even some of it, was going to take a while. After all, it is an entirely new system, and old games or not, we couldn't expect to get them right away. But everyone remained confident that surely, this library Nintendo had been building back up since the launch of the Wii U and 3DS wouldn't be thrown to the wayside. That would be a complete waste of money, resources, and an unexpected blow to the consumer. Surely, it would be obvious to include the entire library of games you had sitting on your brand new console that was a bit lacking for the first year of its life, right? As I'm sure you can guess by my tone, as the months went on, it became clear that Nintendo had no plans to move the Virtual Console onto the Switch. The entire library of games they had built on the Wii Shop channel was thrown away and restarted with the Wii U's eShop. And now, the entire library of games on the eShop was being thrown away. And spoiler alert, was not coming back. Instead, what we have received is a subscription service that drip feeds us 3 games, maybe 4 times a year, if we're lucky. Half of those games being old NES games that no one is interested in. Look, no disrespect to Side Pocket, but gone are the days of waking up to see what new waves of games had released. And instead, now we get told through a Twitter post that Magical Drop is coming. On second thought, maybe an apology is in order because, I'm sold. It sucks! And most of all, it makes no sense. This is the same eShop service they've had for years. They can so easily put these games onto the Switch because they're already there, but they won't. You cannot tell me the Switch can't run these games, because they've shown us with both Wii U ports and Mario 3D All-Stars that the Switch can run even the most recent of Nintendo consoles just fine. Some people make the argument that by the end of its run, the Switch's online service will have a comparable amount of games to the eShop. I'm here to tell you, no, it won't. At the rate we are receiving games, and even slower the amount of big first-party games we're receiving in each update, the Switch will be long dead before we can make a fair comparison. And who's to say this service will even last that long? Who's to say it won't be discontinued when the Switch moves on? Maybe this Nintendo Online $50 a year service continuing, but the game streaming service not. Surely, you say, they wouldn't discontinue this service that they've been building up for years now, would they? They wouldn't be putting all of this time and effort into slowly putting together an entire library of games only to wipe the slate clean afterwards, right? Oh wait, the Wii Shop channel and the eShop Virtual Console would like to have a word with you. Now, I don't blindly dump on Nintendo. I've seen what those fans are capable of doing. I will give credit where it's due. The streaming service does have its benefits. Its service does make it super fast and super convenient to play these games. You can enter and exit each game within a second. There's save states, which is a huge help for some of the older games where deaths are more of an annoyance than a challenge. There's rewind features that make it possible to redo some of these punishing sections, or to abuse the slots in Mario 3. And yes, despite what I've said, there is now a decent library of games available on the service. However, you'll have to forgive me if I'm not willing to jump into Nintendo's chest with open arms only for them to shut the door in my face the way they have the past 2 times now. Don't be fooled just because we're now getting decent games. Don't be fooled because now, when you boot up the service, it has your Legend of Zeldas or even your Earthbounds. These are more than 20-year-old games that you are paying $50 a year for, that you were able to buy for around $10 15 years ago, that are now being released at a snail's pace. I assure you, the billion-dollar company is not your friend. What is stopping Nintendo from locking these games back up in the Nintendo Vault? They already know their consumers will buy no-effort ports of their old games even while knowing it is unfair. So why wouldn't they continue to make these games unavailable after a certain amount of time so that they can sell it to you again in the future? Why does it take months at a time to get 3 30-year-old games? Why do some of these games run worse than they did when you could buy them on the Wii Shop channel? Where on earth is my damn Chrono Trigger? That last one is a joke, but I don't think it's a controversial stance to say that this new service is without a doubt the worst of the three we've gotten. I would love to be proven wrong, and this be the definitive service that Nintendo uses from now on, but I have to say their track record is working against them. Maybe now that the eShop has officially closed, there will be more of a discussion on how unfair this gatekeeping of legacy content is online. Maybe now the fans will make such an uproar that Nintendo has to respond. Maybe we won't... What's that? Oh, wow. Oh my god, they put out a new Tears of the Kingdom footage? Oh man. Look at that, yeah. What was it that we were talking about again?